Hello, and welcome to this episode of SelfKind with me, Erica Webb. We are up to episode 280, and today is a discussion around the book Who Sank the Boat by Pamela Allen. Now, bear with me, it will make sense as we dive into this, but really we're talking about how this analogy of who sank the boat can actually be really helpful for us highly sensitive people when we're trying to figure out, like, how do I stop moving through these cycles of overwhelm? And I hope this is really going to help. So do you remember that book, Who Sank the Boat? It was published back in the 80s by Pamela Allen. And basically it starts with a cow, a donkey, is it a donkey? Yes, a cow, a donkey, a sheep, a pig, and a tiny little mouse. And they all decide that they're going to get into a boat together, a tiny little dinghy, and go out to the water. And surprise, surprise, the boat sinks. But it's not the cow that sinks the boat. It's not the donkey that sinks the boat. It's not the sheep. It's not the pig. It's the tiny little mouse who sinks the boat. And I think this is such an apt analogy for the highly sensitive person experience, because often it is the little thing, the seemingly benign thing, that is the thing that can be the straw that breaks the camel's back, so to speak, right? It might be like, I've handled so many big things today and then I stub my toe and I'm ready to explode. And so we have to think about, I think often, or at least periodically, how we organize our lives, how we organize our time, and how we organize our self-care as highly sensitive people. And this idea of who sank the boat can be a really helpful way of doing that, because maybe as you get ready for work in the morning and you take your commute into work, the cow gets in the boat, right? And so there's already some load in the boat. And then we go through the work day, and perhaps the work day and the interactions that we have, that's the donkey, right? The donkey climbs on board. And then we make our way home, and perhaps there's traffic, perhaps there's somebody annoying behind you who's honking their horn or whatever, and the next animal climbs in. I think it was the sheep. And this boat is getting more and more burdened, and then we get home and there's a pile of bills stacked up, probably not on our bench, but maybe on the kitchen bench, maybe in the letterbox, maybe in your inbox, and that pig climbs on board. And then we think, I have to make dinner, and I have to chop the vegetables, and I have to drop the meat, and I have to get it in a pot, and I have to make something that I can eat. And that's the little mouse that climbs onto the boat, and the boat sinks. And it's seemingly the smallest thing we've had to do all day, and yet it is the thing that sinks the boat. Now, when I think about organizing life as a highly sensitive person with this analogy in mind, I think we can consider how this analogy supports us in two different ways. So the first is how can I claim, hang on, nope, boat's full, right? Before that mouse decides to clamber on. And then the second way is, how do I unload or even just shrink the cow and the donkey and the pig and all of those other animals before that mouse climbs on? So instead of just allowing the load of that in that boat to continue to increase without any checks and balances, I go, hang on, boat's getting kind of full. What can I do to perhaps reduce that load? And so the first thing, right, about how we claim, nope, boat's full, no more things are coming into this boat today, is around how we set boundaries, organize our time, organize our weeks, organize our days, and how we say no to things as well when we know that we're at capacity. And then that second thing, right, of going, okay, well, hang on, the boat's getting really full. How can I offload some of this, or how can I minimize the burden of this, is about how we recognize the signs that come from our nervous system, and they are happening whether we notice them or not, that say, you know what, you are approaching boat sinking time. So maybe it would be a good idea now to do something that resources you, something that helps to ease that burden. This is about noticing how we feel, what we think, how we behave when we know that we're at that point where we're like, you know what, this boat is going to go down. And what do I do in response to that? I'm going to link in the show notes a few other episodes, a few earlier episodes that talk a little bit more about this, right around how we say no, how we set boundaries, and how we respond to overwhelm with different tools. Because I think that those episodes already do that really well. So I'll link those in the show notes. But it's kind of a fun analogy, isn't it? If you haven't read the book, you can see it being read on YouTube. So go ahead and type that in. But it's a really cute little boat, cute little boat. It's a cute little book with a cute little boat with lots of cute little animals, but such a perfect analogy for the HSP experience. And to be fair, anybody who experiences overwhelm, which all humans do. But because as highly sensitive people, that is something that comes up perhaps more frequently and more quickly, it's a really good analogy to have in your back pocket, because we can go, oh yeah, here comes that mouse. I knew that everybody else had already climbed on board, and yet I sort of just tried to white knuckle my way through, but I need to find a way to get some of these animals off this boat so that we do not sink. So I hope that's a helpful analogy, and I will look forward to chatting with you again next week.